Hello, I am Nat, and I'm a massive Fire Emblem fan. Today, I want to talk to you about stats and damage calculations in Fire Emblem Heroes. We'll start with the easy stuff first, your stats. HP is pretty self-explanatory. You die if your hit points get to 0. Attack obviously represents the strength of your attack, but the important thing for you to note is that what is displayed here already takes into account your weapon might and any bonus skills. Let me show you an example. Here is Shape without her weapon or skill. Her base attack is 28. When I equip her hammer, her attack goes up to 36. And if I equip her skill, which is attack plus 2, her attack then becomes 38. Defense reduces damage against physical attacks like axe, lance, sword, bow, and dagger. Res reduces damage against magic from your mages and clerics, as well as damage from these so-called breath attacks from the dragons Naui, Fae, and Tiki. Speed in this game allows you to double your attack by striking twice if your speed is greater than your opponent's by at least 5. Consequently, if your speed is much lower than your opponent's, they can also double you. Speed has taken a slight nerf in this game compared to the main series. Speed here does not contribute to any increase in evasion nor accuracy. This game runs on the premise that every attack is 100% accurate, which is a happy day for all the axe users out there. Speed doubles your attack by allowing you to strike twice. But bear in mind, if your opponent is within range to counterattack, your second hit will only occur after your opponent's counterattack. Let me give the example of Sakura. Her speed is 27, 5 higher than Gaius's 22, allowing her to double him, but not before he hits her once. If your opponent is not within range to counterattack, you get 2 free hits in a row. On the counterattack, if you are fast enough to double, you strike twice after your opponent has completed their initial attack. For the rest of this video, I will abbreviate the speed multiplier as SM, which is 2 if you are fast enough to double, and 1 if you are not. The calculation for neutral damage is straightforward. If you are a physical attacker, it is simply your attack minus your opponent's defense, multiplied by the speed multiplier. And if you are a mage or dragon, it is your attack minus your opponent's res multiplied by the speed multiplier. Over here, Roy has an attack of 35, while Setsuna has a defense of 13. Our damage output is therefore simply Roy's attack of 35 minus Setsuna's defense of 13, which gives us 22. Clerics have a slightly different formula, where we are essentially performing the same calculation, but divided by 2. Sakura here has an attack of 24, while Tsubaki has a res of 13. Sakura is also faster than Tsubaki, so she will double. 24 minus 13 equals 11, and as I said, clerics have to divide by 2, giving 5.5, which when rounded down then becomes 5. Next, I will talk about calculations involving the weapon triangle. I'm not explaining what the weapon triangle is itself because if you played the prologue, Alphonse has already explained it. If you have the weapon triangle advantage, you multiply your attack by 1.2 before subtracting your opponent's defense or res, and then multiplying by the speed multiplier. Here we have Eliwood, who has the weapon advantage over the ex-Cavalier. Multiply his attack of 21 by 1.2 and subtract the Cavalier's defense of 4, then round down to give us 21. Conversely, if you are at the weapon disadvantage, multiply your attack by 0.8, then subtract your opponent's defense or res, and then multiply by the speed multiplier. Do note that this is the only calculation in which you round up your final value. Here Cecilia, who is at the disadvantage, has an attack of 14, while the Sword Cavalier has a res of 9. 14 times 0.8 gives 11.2, and then minus 9 equals 2.2. Rounding up, we get 3. Next, we will cover effective attacks. This includes all archers against flying units, weapons, hammer, heavy spear, and armor slayer against armored units, poison dagger against infantry units, and Excalibur against flying units. Effective damage has a 1.5 times multiplier to your attack. Here, Cersei has the hammer, which is super effective against the armored Hector. Cersei's attack is 34, which we multiply by 1.5 to get 51. Then we subtract Hector's defense of 24 to give us a damage output of 27. Do note that effective weapons do not drop your opponent's damage output. Bonuses for effective hits and weapon triangle advantage do stack. With an effective and advantageous weapon, you get to multiply your attack with both the multipliers 1.5 and 1.2. Here I use Cersei with the hammer, which is both effective and has the triangle advantage over the Lance Knight. Cersei has 34 attack, which we multiply by 1.5 to get 51, and further multiply this by 1.2 to get 61.2. We then subtract the Lance Knight's defense of 27, giving us a damage output of 34 after rounding down. Effective hits but with weapon triangle disadvantage follow a similar principle. We multiply our attack by 1.5 and further multiply it by 0.8. But with all weapon disadvantage calculations, we round up our final value at the end.
Okay.
Here is Est, who has the heavy spear, which is effective against the X-Knight, but has the weapon disadvantage. Her attack is 22. Multiplied by 1.5 gives 33, and further multiplied by 0.8 becomes 26.4. Subtracting the X-Knight's defense of 15 gives 11.4, and we round up to get 12. Always remember to round up when we have the weapon triangle disadvantage. Next up we have the breaker skills, which break the rules of the speed multiplier. The breaker skills require your unit to be greater than a certain percentage of their full health to work. When activated, regardless of speed, will allow your unit to attack twice, while your foe only attacks once. Here is Kagero with Dagger Breaker, which will activate as her HP is more than 70%.
Let's go.
Kagero's speed is only 21, while the thief in the corner has a higher speed of 24. Thanks to Dagger Breaker, Kagero will get a second attack after the thief's counterattack. Unfortunately, Kagero is too strong and the thief dies before his own counterattack. Interestingly, when I pick Kagero with Dagger Breaker against another Kagero with Dagger Breaker, nobody gets to attack twice.
Say the word.
Now, brave weapons drop your effective speed by 5, but whenever you initiate an attack, you get to attack twice before the enemy even attacks you. Let me show you Raven, who is holding the Brave Axe.
Let's go.
He has no speed advantage against Abel with the Brave Lance. Raven gets to hit twice before Abel counterattacks. Abel does not hit twice as he is counterattacking.
Yes.
Here, Raven is fast enough to double the Lance Knight. He starts with 2 hits, the Lance Knight counterattacks, and Raven gets another 2 hits in.
Foes must fall.
We have the Emerald Axe, Ruby Sword, and Sapphire Lance, which I will henceforth call the Pokémon weapons because that's what their names remind me of. These Pokémon weapons exaggerate the effect of the weapon triangle. The multiplier to your attack is 1.4 while at an advantage, and 0.6 at a disadvantage. A bit of double-edged sword if you ask me. What makes this weapon even more crazy is that it also has impacts on the enemy's damage multiplier. Here is a Lance Fighter with the Sapphire Lance versus Cersei with her hammer. First we will calculate the Lance Fighter's damage to Cersei. The Lance Fighter has an attack of 31 and Cersei's defense is 25. 31 multiplied by 0.6 is a miserable 18.6. Subtracted by Cersei's defense of 25, the Lance Fighter does 0 damage. Now we will calculate Cersei's damage. We multiply her attack of 38 by 1.4 to get 53.2 and subtract the Lance Knight's defense of 22, giving us a whopping 31 after rounding down. Now the Pokémon weapons come in skill version as well, otherwise known as Triangle Adept, which at level 3 is essentially the same thing. The level 1 and 2 versions of the skill are just slightly more watered down. And just like the Pokémon weapons, they also alter the damage output of the opponent. Roy has a Triangle Adept at level 1, giving a 10% distortion of the weapon triangle. Roy's attack of 36 multiplied by 1.3 gives us 39.8, subtracted by the Green Cavalier's defense of 7 gives us 39 after rounding down. In the setting of the disadvantage, Roy's attack of 36 times 0.7 equals 25.2, minus Abel's defense of 16 gives us a damage output of 9.2, and we always round up in the setting of disadvantage to 10. Whereas Abel's damage to Roy is 27 times 1.3, giving 35.1, subtracting Roy's defense of 19, total damage output of 16.1. Now here's an interesting scenario. What happens when a hero with the Weapon Adept skill goes up against a hero with one of those Pokémon weapons? Do the multipliers stack? Here is an Axe Cavalier with an Emerald Axe who has 33 in attack, 21 in defense, and a speed of 18. And I have Roy, who has a skill Triangle Adept 2, which grants an additional 15% bonus to attack since we have the advantage. Roy has an attack of 39, a defense of 21, and speed of 27. I'm going to send Roy to attack the Axe Cavalier. What do you think the damage output for each of Roy and the Axe Cavalier will be? Pause here if you wish to try the calculation yourself. Strangely enough, the damage multipliers from the Pokémon weapon and Triangle Adept do not stack. The algorithm ends up choosing the higher multiplier, which is the Emerald Axe. Roy gets his attack multiplied by 1.4, becoming 54.6, subtracted by the foe's defense of 21, then rounding down gives a lovely damage output of 33. That plus Roy was faster, allowing him to double. While the poor Axe Cavalier has his 33 attack multiplied by 0.6 to give 19.8. Lower than Roy's defense, hence not dealing any damage at all. That's all the Fire Emblem Heroes Calcs I have for you today. Until next time, see ya!